Hi, and welcome back to the Home and Hustle podcast. We are on what I believe is episode 4, but our second in the Hawaii Adventure series. And I am going to break this series up into 2 parts, maybe 3. It is going to be all about how we got our dogs to Hawaii, knowing that we were coming to Hawaii for longer than a couple months, not a year. We were gonna bring our dogs with us. There was no way around that. And so I am gonna do today's part on the tactical process, the timeline, and everything to get our dogs from North Carolina to Hawaii. My next part is going to be all about a failed relationship with a business that charges thousands of dollars, like thousands, multiple of dollars to get your dogs from the mainland to Hawaii. And that was a disaster. Disaster. I will be spilling all the tea in the next section. And then if we have more things that we need to discuss, so be it. We'll do that in a third part and just kind of wrap up any loose ends. Sound good? Okay. Today, we are going to talk about the tactical process to get your animals from the mainland to Hawaii. Okay. It I hired a company, and we're going to talk about them next time. But I hired a company because at the same time that our family was planning this move, I my husband was working 4 hours away, so he was gone during the week every week, and I was homeschooling our kids, working full time, and still taking care of my father who was in assisted living, but I had been having more and more conversations with the ladies at the assisted living facility that he really needed more support than what they should be offering, and the recommendation was made a month before we needed to leave that he needed to move to a skilled nursing facility, especially if we were going to be gone for an extended period of time. So we wanted to make sure that he was in the safest place possible for while we were gone at least. And so we made the decision to move him from assisted living to a skilled nursing facility. And we did not take that move lightly. That move, so as you get older, stress involved with moving, and you lose more of your belongings that you've kind of accumulated over your life because the spaces get smaller and more discreet as folks need to be able to get different types of equipment and do different therapies in your room because you are less mobile in his case. And so we're paring down his personal belongings with every move, from his home that he lived in for over 50 years to our home to assisted living and now to skilled nursing. We're paring down with each one of those moves, and that causes stress. And stress in an older person causes inflammation. It can cause some cognitive decline because they lose um, their equilibrium and their rhythm is all messed up. And so I did not take moving him again in such a short period of time. He had just been in assisted living the year prior. And so I did not take that lightly. But to put him in the safest place possible, knowing that he could not travel with us and his health was continuing to decline, we made the decision to move him to skilled nursing. So I'm working, I am doing taekwondo, I am homeschooling. My husband is gone 4 days a week. I'm moving my dad at the same time. And I hired this company to help us move the dogs. Please just take one thing off my plate. And the amount of stress that they added to my life, I will never get that time back. And that stress gave me so much gray hairs, and it actually put such a damper on the entire process, but we moved beyond it. Literally 2 weeks before we were moving, I called it and said, "You're not moving our dogs. I will figure this out on my own." As I mentioned in the first episode of this series, I canceled my flight, so my husband is traveling with my kids now, and I am on my own to find a flight with space in cargo for me and 2 very big dogs, and I am having to buy crates because we don't crate our dogs regularly, and so I'm buying crates that are airline approved. I'm doing all the research on what that looks like. So I'm exponentially adding to my level of stress and things to do in a very short period of time as I'm thinking of moving my family 6,000 miles away. So, um, but it's not hard. And that's what I want to stress in this episode. You can do this. I did this in less than 2 weeks. You can do this, especially if you plan ahead. I am gonna just kinda jump into it, okay? And for those that are listening on Spotify, there is video associated with this. I'm also gonna upload the video MP4 to YouTube so that you have this to look at as well. And for those that may be listening on Apple Podcasts or other platforms that don't support video, feel free to go find me on Spotify or YouTube, and you can see all of this information here. But the first thing is there is a website. If you Google Hawaii, traveling to Hawaii checklist, there is a Hawaii, and this is going to blur because I'm not technologically savvy, but on the Honolulu website for the airport, there is a checklist for all the things that you need to do to get your dogs here. And if you look at this multi-page front and back checklist, it looks overwhelming. And that's why I said, hey, I need some help and I'm going to just outsource this. It is not, if you can just sit down and read it all and then put it in a process and an order, it is totally doable because you're going to be working with your vet primarily. There's just a couple things that you need to do at certain points in time, which is the most stressful part. Okay. So I'm going to walk you through that timeline. Okay. I've put this together for us. We are going to start at the end. The very last thing on this timeline, if you will, is the date you arrive in Hawaii. Everything, all of the timelines that are in this checklist are based on the date you arrive in Hawaii. So if you are one of those people that are looking for last minute flight deals, you're likely not going to get your dogs to Hawaii without them needing to be quarantined. And this, I will say, this process that I'm outlining here is in order to not have to have your dogs in quarantine at your expense for a certain number of days once you leave the airport. Okay, so we're trying to avoid quarantine and just get off the airplane, get our dogs out of the animal quarantine station and to wherever our final destination is on this trip. That's the goal of this, okay? So the date you arrive in Hawaii is the date that we're going to be working from, okay? That's the date that you have to know up here. I will make a note that the very first line in this is to research your flights and you need to call. So I flew Hawaiian out here. At the time, because such is life, at the time, Hawaiian Airlines and Alaskan Airlines were merging into a singular airline, okay? And if you look at the Hawaiian Airlines pet travel requirements and the Alaskan pet travel requirements, they are different. Okay. So, and you also, they only have a certain amount of cargo space. So, my dogs, because they are so big, they cannot fly with me where everyone else is sitting. And my golden doodle, high anxiety, high energy. I would not do that to a plane full of people. So, they were going to fly in cargo. There is very limited cargo space for pets on these flights. There are also restrictions where they will not fly if the land temperatures are greater than 80 degrees. That can fluctuate. Also, if you are flying into San Francisco or Seattle, where the weather can tend to be poorer more during the year and flights are subject to delay at an increased rate. If your flight gets delayed or canceled and you have to find another flight, know that that impacts this date you arrive in Hawaii. Okay. So I say all of that to say you need to call the airline that you plan to book with. Hey, I'm looking for a flight July 31st. I need to know which flights. Have some flights in your mind. This is the flight I'd like to have. Do you have room for in cargo for pets? I'm traveling with 2 pets. You need to know their size. Are they going to be in small crates, large crates, extra large crates? Mine are extra large, the largest that they can fit. And then they will tell you, oh, we only have space for one dog. Yes, we have space for both dogs. Or no, there's already full of dogs on that plane. So they will be able to help you. The way that you go about booking the flight is you have your flight in mind, have a backup, have a plan C and D. Okay. Of all of these dates, here's where I'm flexible. Can we look at all of these flight options to see if there's cargo space for my dogs? Okay. You are going to then book the flight that they say there's cargo space on, and then you're going to call back and say, hey, I've booked this flight, I've paid for it, here's my confirmation number. And now, because you cannot do this through the airline's website, airline customer service has to do this on every airline that I've spoken to, you have to call back and get them to assign the number of pets to your ticket. That reserves the pet space in the cargo area. Okay. So you're going to research your flights. You're going to have several options in mind of what you would like to fly. And then you're going to ask them for cargo space. They're going to say, yes, we have space on this flight. You are going to book that flight in a timely manner. And then you're going to call back with your confirmation number once you've paid for it. And they're going to reserve that cargo space on the flights that you've paid for so that you are flying together. Okay. So that's kind of the bookends of this process is your flight. Okay. You need to make sure the flight has cargo space and you need to know what day you're going to arrive in Hawaii. Okay. So now that we have our flights in mind, okay, and we have space for our dogs, we're going to start backing into this. So I'm going to go back to the end of my timeline and I'm going to work my way backwards on the things that need to happen. Okay. I say less than 14 days here. Less than 14 days before you are set to arrive in Hawaii, you are going to have a final visit with your veterinarian that has to have 2 things happen. They are going to complete a health certificate and they are going to give your dog their flea, tick, and heartworm meds for that month. Okay, so I do a Simparica trio. I just like that one chew does it all. And so, but you're not going to give it that month. Your vet is going to give it. They have to sign off that they gave it. Okay, as part of the health certificate. The health certificate, my vet charged me, I think it was $95 per dog. I had 2 dogs. This is not an inexpensive operation here. So in addition to the vet visit and them giving them the meds, there is a charge for the actual USDA, United States Department of Agriculture health certificate that they will charge you. So you need to also make sure with your vet that they can do the FAVN, which we'll talk about here in a second, FAVN. It's a rabies test. It's a titer, if you will. And then they need to be able to do the USDA health certificate. Not hard, but you need to make sure that that's something that they provide as a service. And you're going to get charged for it. Okay. So 14 days. I say less than 14 days because that's what's in the checklist, but it is also your airline, Alaskan, has a 10-day or less. So you're going to know what the rules are for the airline that you choose to fly on and that you've booked. You're going to read their rules on their flight. So even if Hawaii, the animal quarantine station, says that they need your health certificate dated and signed less than 14 days, if your airline says that that health certificate needs to be dated less than 10 days before your arrival, You're going with the shorter duration, right? You're going with the smaller timeline. Go with me here, okay? So we're going to have a final vet visit. They're going to give them their flea, tick, and heartworm med for the month, and they are going to do this health certificate. More than 10 days before you get there, you are going to complete the animal quarantine station report. Okay, and that is a 4-page, I believe, set of forms, and you are going to provide all of the information about you, about your pet, including their microchip number. And I'm going to say this multiple times because this was new to me. My dogs were microchipped from the time that we adopted them, but your dog's life does not start until they have a microchip. Let me say that again. Your dog's life, from a vaccine perspective, does not start until they have a microchip. So if you give them a rabies vaccine at the age, like as a puppy, or you rescue them from like a shelter or something, and they are not microchipped, and they get their rabies vaccine, then that rabies vaccine is not recognized by the animal quarantine station in Hawaii or the USDA health certificate, which you have to have 2 prior rabies vaccines before you come to Hawaii. That first one has to be after they've been microchipped. Okay. So make sure your dogs are microchipped and that you've had 2 rabies vaccines since then. Okay. But as part of this animal quarantine station packet, it's AQS 279, and the form is online. You print it off, you fill it out. It's all of your information, all of your pet's information, including their microchip number. That is going to be the key. If you're an IT, the primary key that connects all of this is that microchip number. It's going to ask for where are you staying in Hawaii. So you're going to need to give them who's going to pick them up from the animal quarantine station, and where are you going from the airport. So you're going to need to have that information, whether it's a hotel, an Airbnb, if you're moving here permanently, if it's on a base somewhere. From a military perspective, you're just going to have an address and a phone number for where you can be reached once you leave the airport. And then you are going to send a cashier's check or money order for $185. That's what it is in 2025, 2026. That was when I completed this process. $185 per pet per form. Okay. So I have 2 dogs. That is $185 on separate checks with the memo note having their microchip number, paying for this AQS form submission. Okay, so we're starting to rack up the money here, as you can see. Okay, so we're going to fill out our AQS packet, and there's several things that have to go with this AQS packet. It's your form, your completed form. It doesn't have to be notarized or anything like that. You're going to have your 2 rabies vaccine certificates. So the current rabies vaccine that they've had, I don't know why balloons just went off, and your prior one. Okay, so you need the most recent 2 rabies vaccines. Then you need your FAVN results, which I'll talk about again here in just a second, and you need that cashier's check for the money order. Okay. It gives you an option on that form to check that you're also sending your health certificate. This AQS packet has to be at the AQS station more than 10 days before you arrive. So if your airline says that your USDA health certificate has to be done within 10 days of your arrival, you are not going to be able to mail that form fast enough. It has to be mailed. There's no fax or anything like that. So the USDA health certificate is the only piece of this packet that you can hand deliver to the animal quarantine station when you get off the plane. Okay. But all of these other 5 things, the form packet, 2 rabies certificates, the current vaccine record from your vet, your FAVN results, and the cashier's check or money order, all has to be to the animal quarantine station prior to 10 days before you arrive. And then you can deliver it by hand, the USDA health certificate. Okay. Again, you have to make sure that your final rabies vaccine. So let's say that your dog got a 3-year rabies vaccine 2 years ago and they're not due for another one for next year, you're going to go ahead and give them another one. They have to have 2. And if you're in that situation where they have not had 2 prior since they've been microchipped, you're going to go ahead and give it to them, and it has to be done more than 30 days before you arrive. Okay? So you're going to make sure that you have a final rabies vaccine. Again, 2 rabies certificates have to be given. Even if they have a 3-year and you're in the middle of that 3-year before they get their next one, you're giving them another one. Okay. Your FAVN test. Your FAVN test works as a titer. It measures the amount of that rabies vaccine in their bloodstream. It looks like this. And I've hidden a bunch of information on this, and I'm sorry it's blurring. But this FAVN report, it basically tells them the serum sample has been tested for antibodies to the rabies virus, and we have found a titer of, and then it'll give a number. That number has to be greater. I think it's greater than 0.5 units per milliliter. Yes, greater than or equal to 0.5 units per milliliter. And for example, mine was 1.5. We had just given Jackson his, and that's who this one is for. But anyway, you're going to have your FAVN done. That FAVN is actually good for 36 months, 3 years. Okay. So you can get your FAVN done right after you book your flight, and it's going to be good for you up until the date you arrive in Hawaii. Granted, you're not arriving in Hawaii 3 years from the time you get that test done. Okay. So go ahead and do that early in the process. Again, we're going backwards in time. Microchip your dogs. That begins your dog's life from a vaccine record perspective. Book your flight and make sure that you have cargo space on the flight. Okay. I think I've said everything I need to have done there. That is the process. So let me just quickly, I do have my forms here and I'll show you the order. So when I was getting my stuff ready, I had my flight booked. I knew that there was cargo space and that was reserved for my dogs. I immediately called the vet and say, hey, I'm moving to Hawaii for several months. I need to come in. Do you support the FAVN and the USDA health certificate? I'm reading about that on the checklist and need to know how to go about doing that. Yes, ma'am, we do. We use Kansas State University as our FAVN provider, and then we can do the health certificate whenever you need it done by. Great. Can I go ahead and get on your schedule to do that? We get on the schedule. Keep in mind, I personally had to switch vets because the vet I had been using did not do the USDA health certificate. So I switched vets. So I had to move medical records and all that stuff. So again, ask your vet if this is something that they offer. Get on their books early and go ahead and get the full exam done. Get their FAVN done so it can be sent off, because it does take a couple weeks to get that back. Make sure that you've got vaccine records. Okay. If you don't have the prior one, your vet will be able to provide you a copy, and it needs to have a wet signature. It can't be like rubber stamped. Okay. So somebody needs to sign their name. Okay. So you've got your FAVN results, right? We've got FAVN, and then we've got 1 with the wet signature, 2 rabies vaccines. Okay. With the most recent one being more than 30 days before we arrive. And then I had them print me off while I was there the vaccine records for both of my dogs. It was on one form and that worked fine. And then I completed my, you'll see all the tape where I was like, let me add all my personally identifiable information. But I filled out the AQS forms, and all of this stuff went together in a singular envelope for both of my dogs to the AQS station. Oh, and I got the cashier's check. I just went to the bank and paid for a cashier's check. Okay. And then I went back to the vet. So when I was at the vet for the FAVN, I went ahead and said, here's the date I'm leaving. The date I'm going to arrive in Hawaii is this date. 10 days before. Keep in mind, weekends count. So if you're going to, I do not recommend trying to fly like up against a Friday, Monday situation in case you run into weekend issues. But do what you need to do. I said, here's when I arrive. My airline says I need this done within 10 days of arriving. So we booked me a vet appointment within that 10-day window to get my USDA health certificate done. It was something that the vet could pull up in her office, print off. It's got both dogs on the same certificate, so I only had to pay for the health certificate one time. It has, again, their microchip number is their primary key. It shows the date that the vet gave my dogs their flea, tick, and heartworm meds before we left. It has to be done at that vet appointment. And then she signed it. Okay. So, and this is the form that I hand delivered to the animal quarantine station in Honolulu when we got off the plane. All right. So that is the tactical nuts and bolts of the timeline and the things that you need. Again, not hard, but you do have to keep the process rolling once you know you're coming and once you have a date that you're going to arrive. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about let me remove this. Let's talk a little bit about getting to the airport. So this is me and the dogs, and we rented a car to go from our house. So at the time we had sold my car because we weren't going to be there for a year. Well, it'll be less than a year, but we weren't going to be there. I didn't want it just sitting and everything just kind of settling. And I didn't want to be paying for auto insurance on it while I was gone. So I knew it was going to be more than a couple of months. And so we just sold it. I'll get another car when I go back. I rented a car to go from my house to the airport with my dogs. This is us that morning, okay? Getting to the Raleigh-Durham airport. I had both of their kennels with me, these big, humongous kennels. And when I got to the airport, I get my dogs in a kennel, which was not easy because we don't normally keep our dogs in kennels. Sunset Shimmer just walked right in. She's my white dog. Jackson, hell no, he was not going. And it was a lot. I get to the tram. So we flew out of Raleigh-Durham, and we got to the tram to get over to the terminal, right, for the departures, so I could get through security. And my dogs in their kennels will not fit on the trolley. I am about in tears already, and we just got to the airport. I'm like, what is happening? All these things that you just wouldn't know. I asked the sweetest guy, Jamarion, at the National Rental Car Place at the airport, and I was, sir, how am I getting from here to the terminal with my dogs? They will not fit through the doors. Like, the kennel is so big, it would not fit through the doors on the trolley or on the tram. He says, which car did you drive over here? And I pointed to it, and he just grabbed the keys for another car that was close. We put the dogs in that car, and he drove me, angel on this earth. He drove me, no questions asked, around to the terminal. He helped me get my dogs out. He helped me get my luggage. He helped me get to the gate where I am checking my dogs in. And then he left. I had no idea how I was going to do that. And he just answered. He saw, well, there's no way you're getting there if you're relying on this bus. And so we're going to figure it out. And he went above and beyond. And he was the first angel I met on this trip. Okay. So he gets me and my dogs to the airport. We get through security. So at security, let me tell you what to expect. At security, you're going to get up to the gate to check where you would go to check your bags. You have dogs, right? Your dogs have to be in their kennels. There is a whole list, and maybe that's a part 3, but we're going to go into, they're in their kennels. They have to be inspected by a TSA agent. At the Raleigh-Durham airport, the TSA agent came to the security line. So what the security line did was they went through all of the copies of all the paperwork that I had already sent to Hawaii to make sure that I had updated vaccine records, like I had followed the process. TSA agent comes to where I am at the ticket counter, bag claim. And he says, he checks the kennels. So the dogs have to come out of the kennels and then go back in the kennels. This is fine for Sunset Shimmer. We get her out first. She stands there. He gets through her kennel, makes sure that there's nothing in there that can't be flying with her. He tells me I can put her back in, and then he puts, what are they called? Zip ties on each of the four corners of the gated entrance for her kennel so that she's checked where nothing else is coming in or out once she's back in. Jackson, pull him out. Fine. He checks the thing. We're going to put Jackson back in. And he is not a willing participant in this exercise. And to say the least. And this girl, sweetest girl, Nicole, comes from around the desk and she's like, "Ma'am, I volunteer at the Humane Society and I think I have a trick. I'm happy to show you, and maybe it'll get him in quicker and it'll be gentler on him. Love this. Love you. Thank you so much." And she picks up his back legs and his little front legs walk straight into that kennel. I was like, "No, ma'am, do that again. I need to see it again." Like, this is amazing. You are my second angel on this trip. We bring him out. She picks his back legs up, his little front legs hobble right on in there. And then we close the gate and we zip tie it. Lesson learned, right? So then my dogs get taken by the TSA agent on a trolley to where they're going to go get boarded on the plane. And then I go through security, okay, just like you normally would. So I go through security, get to my gate, get on the plane. The flight attendant will come and hand you a piece of paper that says your dogs have made it on the plane, and then they will take off. You're supposed to make sure that somebody knows, I have dogs getting on this plane. I need to know that they are on before we leave, okay? So make sure you touch base with a flight attendant whenever you get on the plane. We took off. We had 0 issues. We flew into Seattle. We get off the plane. My dogs are 2 very big dogs in extra large kennels, and they are stacked one on top of the other because I cannot physically roll both of them. So I had them stacked. And lo and behold, if this man did not meet me he said, "I saw you on the plane. I heard you about your dogs. We're from North Carolina. I recognize the accent." And he and his wife, who were in Seattle, they had several hours before their connecting flight. So they were just going to go out of the airport and go grab some food at a local eatery. And he and his sweet wife helped me get out the door and to my Uber. I had ordered an extra large Uber ahead of time to get me from the airport to the hotel, because whenever you're flying with dogs for that many miles, you have to have a layover at some point, more than 3 hours, to give you time to get the dogs out of security, get them a bio break so they can pee and do whatever they need to do, and then get back through security, and then you get back through security into your gate so that you can continue on your way. But I had chosen to stay the night so that my dogs get out of their kennel and have some walking room. So we did all of that. I don't think I have a picture in here, but we got out, we got to our hotel. It was an Embassy Suites. And then there was a greenway behind it. So my dogs got a really long walk. We came back. The hotel was amazing. Gave my dogs dinner. And then we booked I asked the front desk lady, "How am I getting back to the airport tomorrow with these dogs and these kennels?" To which she called the guy that runs the trolley back and forth from the hotel to the airport. He comes in, he looks at the kennels. He says, "I'm going to book a route just for you. I will take you by yourselves with your dogs." And that is the next day. He takes us on the bus, me and the dogs. He did not require the dogs to be in their kennel. So the kennel is in the very back. And Angel did not speak great English. I do not remember his name, and I am really sorry for that. But he also helped me get out of the van with the 2 dogs, helped me get my dogs in the kennel, and he pushed one of them while I got the other all the way to the desk so that I would be in line, and I was first in line because he helped me just coordinate the chaos, and Angel 3 on this trip. Just showing up and just answer I mean, just it was amazing. We get in. This is where we started to break down. I am at the airport 3 hours early in Seattle. I am 4th in line. No, 1st in line, but there were other people behind me, and one of them was handicapped, and I let them get in front of me. So anyway, I was in the front, though. And the line does not open until 45 minutes before your flight, even though the airport tells you to get there if you're traveling with pets 2 hours prior. This is also the same day that Hawaiian and Alaskan are merging their site or whatever. And so they were having technical difficulties. While I am in line, this guy takes all of these people not in the priority line, just out of this other line. And they're got baggage that's overweight. They're having to take things out, shuffle things. I'm like, "Sir, my flight is boarding now, and you haven't even called me up to check my paperwork and help me get my dogs through security." Finally, he gets me up to the thing. He helps me, but at Seattle Airport, TSA does not come to you. You go to TSA with your pets. So we check all the paperwork. He has to go make copies of my paperwork away from the desk downstairs, and wherever they go, the gate agents go, that's where he had to go to make copies. He was gone forever. And I see we're in boarding from my phone on the app. And I'm like, great. He's not even standing here anymore. I don't know what to do. He comes back. Okay, we're going to go to TSA now. He helps me take both of my dogs to TSA. We get them in, we get them out, they check the things, da 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 da. We go. Then you cannot just leave your dogs with TSA like I had done in Raleigh. You have to take them downstairs beyond where you go through the TSA gates, and they have to be picked up by the folks that come and get all of the oversized luggage. And so those people, I'm sure they meant well and were just following what they needed to do. And I was just another person not planned in their day. But we were knocking on the door. We were trying to get someone's attention. He called on the walkie-talkie. He walked away multiple times to try to get somebody to come get my dogs. Could not get somebody to come get my dogs. This sweet guy, meet Angel 4. I am leaving my dogs in the capable hands of this gate agent at Alaskan. And he says, your flight is in final boarding. You have to go through security. And when you get through security, you have to get on the tram to go to the next terminal. And then your gate is at the far end. You have to go. So I am taking a picture so that I know where I left my dogs last. And I'm leaving them. That just was all there was to it. I left them there, and this is like back behind him, like on the far where you see the escalator. That is where TSA starts. So I am running. I take all of my stuff in my arms like this, and I get on the tram. And as the tram is moving, I'm trying to get my book bag back together. And then I get on the plane, and I am praying that my dogs get on the plane. I tell the flight attendant as I get on the plane, I'm the last one to get on the plane, even though I was at the airport 2 hours before my flight. I am the last one to get on. I'm saying, I have dogs. And as of when I left, my dogs had not been picked up from like the cargo area. And she's, let me look. He was still sitting there, and they sent somebody to go get my dogs from here and get them on the plane. And they promised me that we would not leave till my dogs were on board. I did not know, but I had booked myself. I knew I had booked myself first class because I was flying by myself without my kids, and I had these dogs, and I was just trying to make every accommodation for myself to feel some type of good about this. And first class was where I was going to do it on this last leg of this trip. And when I saw that first class was where you have individual pods with lay flat seats and a TV and a little open bar situation, I cried. And the girl is like, "Can I bring you a drink? You can bring me all of the drinks." Will we have Mai Tais? It will bring me I honestly non-discriminatory here. Bring me whatever you have the most of. I will be asked my husband's gonna meet me at the airport, and he will drive me home. I am just this was my final destination. This flight and my dogs being on it was my final destination, and I am a hot mess. So, whatever you got, that's what I'm drinking. I just want it to keep coming. And so, I get in my little pod, and she tells me that it has a door that I can close. To say that that door closed so fast, I dared somebody to come talk to me. Don't talk to me. I am now in Emily land. We are listening to all of the smutty books on my phone, and we are going to be having TV on mute in front of me just so I have something to watch. I am going to lay in this cozy seat sideways. Don't talk to me unless it's to ask me, "Hey, we're out of vodka. Can we bring you something else?" That's the only question I want. So, we get to Hawaii, and my sweet family meets us at the airport, and to say, "Look at me, I am a hot mess," you know? Just telling the story makes me hot all over again. But anyway, this is my family picking me up from the airport, and then to say it was immediately as if none of that had ever happened. I mean, my dogs have been living their best lives. This is Sunset Shimmer. We were at Lanakai this day, lying in the sun. I did break my ankle a couple weeks ago, different story, another day, but this is Jackson, same beach, and you see my cute boot that I got from Queens Medical Center. So that is how I got my dogs from North Carolina to Hawaii. The whole process in a nutshell, the whole story of the airports, and then the ever after, what they have been experiencing while they're here, and they have been loving it. Going back, I will say I have not researched the process super closely, but I do know that the mainland US does not have the requirement that you do have to redo the USDA health certificate, but all of their vaccine records, especially if the rabies and all of that stuff were done before you got here, all of that stands as long as all of their vaccines are up to date. So what I have talked to my vet about here is making sure that we have a vet appointment the month before. No, I'm sorry. The 10 days before, because I'm flying. Who am I flying back home? Alaskan. I'm flying Alaskan back home, so they have that 10-day requirement for the USDA health certificate. So 10 days before I leave, that is when I will be back at the vet to get just kind of final vaccines. They have to give them their flea, tick, and heartworm meds before we can leave to do that USDA health certificate. And then all of their other records will stand. I think they just need their lepto again while they're here. So yeah, so that's it. Again, next episode, we will be talking about all the ways in which the company I had worked with and contracted with to get my dogs here so that I didn't have to do what I just explained. We're going to talk and spill all the tea about them. Okay. So come back for the next episode. And yeah, I think we'll do a third one just all about the kennel requirements, because there are certain requirements. I'll tell you where to find those and how to find those, and then the things that need to be on and around and in your kennel. So I'll do that in a third episode. But I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much. And if there are other questions wherever you're listening to this too, if you can follow or subscribe, like it, and then leave me a comment and tell me if there are other things related to getting your pets to Hawaii that I missed or haven't talked about covering that you'd like to hear about. All right. We will talk soon. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.